mother is also an architect, and I was born in Japan, born in the UK, raised in Japan, and later educated here. And when Hege first asked me to do this talk, I mean, as architects, we're all sort of used to kind of talking about our own work and kind of talking about our projects, but you never have the time to sort of reflect on what you do as a designer or as a human being. And it's actually been for me quite useful to think about it and to reflect on who I am and what I do. So I don't know how many architects there are here, but my parents were architects in Japan. They started their practice in the 80s and went their separate ways in the 90s. And their work was sort of an experimentation in form and fluidity, and sort of it's architecture that's sort of born out of its situation and it's about the siting and the sort of the experience of the space. And just to go back to my kind of upbringing in Japan, Tokyo is a crazy kind of busy, intense. There's so much going on, and the buildings are all animated and illustrated. You can sort of just about see on that side. All the buildings sort of the banners illustrate exactly what's inside them. And so many, sort of hundreds and hundreds of people. And also, I suppose I grew up reading manga and watching anime, and there's, in manga world, it's the world that's created around them is the central thing is the characters. The world is a sort of a cup or a platform for those characters to exist in. And when I started to think about this talk, I thought, oh, you know, what is it that sort of drives me? What is it, the motivation behind what I do? And I think it's about the activity and the people that are sort of central to it. These images I discovered in my undergraduate degree, and I find them quite frightening and sort of they're so sort of eerie and unsettling because of what's not in them. And a place is made of the people and the activity, and once that's removed, there's something that sort of just kills or takes away, and it becomes a completely different place. And so to kind of connect it to my work and what I've done, this is a project I did during my studies, and it was a kind of an exploration of what happens when you separate the building and the content. You know, what happens when you sort of take away what the building is made for. But prior to the project, we did a group project and set a scenario, and it was about sort of advent age of computer, internet kind of based education at universities, and sort of learning in cyberspace, and the buildings become sort of relevant, and what happens to those buildings. And so that was the scene. So the idea was to try and bring the things out and sort of scatter them in the city and see what happens. And what happens with the buildings is people move, or in my project, the buildings become sort of a platform for people just using it as an exhibition space, performance. But the most interesting part for me was what happens to the city and how people start to perceive when you put, you know, a dinosaur in front of a cathedral. You know, it changes completely the way that people see a city. So I want to sort of show a couple of projects that have this theme of the activity and the occupation through it. And working with my mother is sometimes quite hard, and we have our sort of moments. But what I really love about it is the sort of the honesty and the openness, and because the boundary between sort of the professionals and the fact that we're colleagues is blurred with the fact that we're family, and you can be really kind of, you can really have a sort of go and kind of open up to each other, and it's the honesty that I really enjoy. We were the architects on also the Missile Order. I'm sure you've seen it, whether you like it or not. And the project I'm going to talk about is the North Park Pub competition that we were shortlisted for. The North Park, I can't point, but it's sort of towards the top. And having worked on the orbit, we knew about the side park. I mean, we were familiar with the site, but the North Park was a sort of uncharted territory for us, and we quickly realised that the North Park is a sort of contrast to the South. It's about the sort of suburbia, it's about green space, and it's about sort of natural and sort of green parklands. And the competition was for a kind of a children's play park and community hub. The Olympic Delivery Committee spent a lot of money regenerating the river which runs through the site, and they've got this amazing reed beds, and so we took that as a sort of inspiration, and looking at the sort of the activities that will happen. It's about the children, it's about the wildlife, it's about nature, and it's about the community. And our proposal, going to the next slide, our proposal was, so we use these sort of timber structures as a sort of, as metaphor for the reed, and using it as a framework for inserting the activity and the use. So you can see there's boxes, kind of play boxes suspended within the structure. We've got bird boxes, bee boxes, and there's a ramp that comes up to the roof, and it's a sort of, it's a kind of anti-building. It's taking away the sort of the life of the building is outside, and it's about children's play. And we always try to kind of, whenever we do our imaging, whenever we do our images, it's the most fundamental thing is that it captures the spirit and the reasons behind what we've done. And I always loved Studio Ghibli films as a child, and I've always wanted to find a way to use this sort of fantasy but also quite familiar images. And so our visualizations, actually, George and Lucas, our wonderful friends, did them. But it really captures the energy and the fact that it's for children to play in, and it's a kind of framework and a platform for the occupation and the play. That's another one. Bird's eye view. And this is another project that we did for a chapel in Oxford, and it was for these nuns that you can see in the pictures and the priest to the left. And we completely fell in love with these nuns and priests. They're so sort of spiritual and so sort of calm and modest, but you really got the feel. Really got the sort of the feeling that they were inspired by their religion. And what was really important to them was light, and also they had a big thing about their cloaks, and they had this drawer full of all of their clothes, and a cupboard that was kind of shoved away in the corner, but they wanted a sort of a proper place. And the grounds it was in, they had these amazing kind of weathered clay tiles that we wanted to incorporate. So we created a sort of, it's a cone that frames the shaft of light, which is a sort of the most important thing to them in their space. They wanted this abundance of light. And it's a wooden structure clad in the roof tiles, it's sort of similar roof tiles that it has. So the idea was that it weathered over time, and it was a sort of a special kind of praying space that they could go to. So you can see that it's a sort of upside down kind of axo plan over there, that it is all about this shaft of light and the space in the middle, and we created a special room for them to sort of to have meetings, and also their special wardrobe and their kind of office space. And as I said before, in our kind of imagery and visuals, we always try to capture the essence of what the project is about in the images that we produce. And this is about kind of serenity, about sort of lightness, and about the ephemeral. I always sort of see architecture as being, I love to cook, and I always see it as a kind of, there's a similarity between cooking, and you take all of the ingredients, everybody does it in a different way, and so what comes out of it is a natural, or is an outcome and a product of what you do.